And good evening or afternoon, whichever you prefer, because here on Frankly Speaking, we're on at noon and prime time at 8, Paul. Did you know that?
People keep asking me, and I'm not really sure, so maybe we could tell the folks at home what the schedule is. So
do you know what it is?
I know that the first airing of the new show is every Wednesday at 8 o'clock, right?
Right.
And then, so when are the repeats?
Friday at noon and at 8, Monday at noon and 8, and Wednesday at noon.
Okay.
And then a new show.
Okay, so then the question is, so it's basically every other day, noon and 8. So then, what station is the original show on? The Wednesday night at 8 o'clock?
38 if it's on Verizon, and I believe it's 3 on Comcast.
But then the replays are on 22?
Same station.
No, 22.
Right. Yeah. Oh, there is 22.
So it's the first showing is on 3, the second is on 20, or the repeats are on 22.
It's also on 3 and 38.
So if somebody says, what station is it on? I say, it's on 22 unless you're watching it on Wednesday night at 8 o'clock.
Always 3.
Is it always 3?
Yeah. See, that's how much.
Is it on 22 at all? As
Yeah.
well, at the same time?
Yeah. Yeah.
Different.
They're two different, we have two different, we're so popular that it takes 2 national companies to project us. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
We're on YouTube, which means that people on Star Trek in an alternate universe can actually tune into Frankly Speaking.
That's right.
At their convenience. In fact, my daughter did a Frankly Speaking telethon and watched episode after episode after episode.
Right.
She thinks you're cute.
No accounting for taste, right?
You are tuned in to Frankly Speaking, where truth is our mission, reality our realm, said as we see it, and frankly as well. And Mr. Paul, you have the Frankly Paul portion of our
Yes.
show. We have some very new, interesting segments to be added. So let's move the show along.
Move right along, okay.
Folks, by the way, we caution you. I know it's good. I don't want to break your heart. We will not be filming next week. So take a breath. We promise you we'll be back the week after. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're going to miss 1 week because of some new equipment and the setting up of new equipment.
Yeah,
next
to make
week.
us look better, which is hard to do.
By the way, pretty soon we'll be going, we can't say when yet, but we'll be going live. And at some point we'll be going back to the being able to take calls.
Which is precisely what I want to do.
That's coming soon. So, if you thought it was fun up till now, wait till we get back to that routine.
And the first question we're going to ask on the live show is, should Lynn be a sanctuary city?
Yes.
Huh?
Yeah.
I like
not?
that.
Yeah.
Go on,
I love
Frankly,
that.
Paul.
Okay, so nearly 11,000 people in the city of Lynn are 65 years or over.
Speak for yourself.
I'm not one of them.
I am.
Of that number, about 15% suffer from some form of dementia. That's 1,650 people.
That's a lot of people, Paul.
Yeah, it's a big number, and it shouldn't be ignored, right?
I agree.
Right. This is I won't call it a shameless plug, but it is a plug for a program that we're going to be doing this coming Thursday.
By the way, folks, let me interrupt you, Paul. That part of it I scripted, and I don't want so I don't want people to think that you're beating your own chest.
No, right? Yeah. So the point of the matter is that on Thursday at I believe 10 o'clock, and it's going to run. There's going to be some training sessions from 10 till around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There'll be lunch served and so forth, and it's to train people in the Lynn community about dementia and how to identify it, how to spot it, how to react to it, how to accommodate it, and all these types of things, which I think it's really an important thing, given there are so many people that have dementia. And I like to use this as a good example. Have you ever had a conversation? You walk down the street, you say hi to somebody, and they bark back at you for some reason, and you say to yourself, well, what did I do to deserve that? And and then you think about it and you realize that whoever it was, they've got something going on in their life. You don't know what's going on at home or at work or what have you, and they could be in a bad place at that particular time. And the reaction that you're getting has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with their circumstances, right? And that's kind of what it's like for somebody with dementia. Somebody with dementia who appears agitated, they appear to be confused. You know, it's not because they are angry, or it's not because they are, you know, somehow, you know, having issues. It's because of the dementia.
Well,
And
isn't that
understanding that people, you know, with dementia behave certain ways, and that there are ways that you can make them feel more comfortable and you feel more comfortable in the settings that they're in is really an important thing. And this is the whole idea behind what we call dementia-friendly communities, and we're trying to
let's clear up a couple
Lynn
of things.
a dementia-friendly
Yeah,
community.
I want to clear up a couple of things, though, Paul. First of all, Pedro, can we throw up this wonderful quote that you put up? It says, "Living well with dementia." And, you know, let's not make people think that it's doom and gloom.
No,
because and this is part of my understanding, part of the forum you're having is to let people know about dementia, what can be done, what can't be done, you know, and stuff like that. Anyway, I kind of like this quote, Paul, and if you would read it out as it's on the screen.
Okay, this is from Carrie Mulligan, and I don't know who Carrie is, but anyway, those with dementia are still people, and they still have stories, and they still have character, and they are all individuals, and they are all unique, and they just need to be interacted with on a human level. And I think that really does sum it up in a way that, you know, just a layperson can relate to. And by the way, you know, when there's 1,650 people, or 15% of the over 65 population in the city of Lynn has dementia, that means that probably everybody that you know, or anybody that's watching this show, either knows firsthand about this situation. You know what I'm saying? So it touches everybody.
And, you know, and if you're fortunate enough, I don't know whether it's genetic or not, but if you're fortunate enough to get into senior citizenhood, you know, with your faculties in pretty good order, that's a blessing.
Right. And then, can I just add one more thing?
Yeah.
I think I talked all about what we're going to be doing and the time we're going to be doing it, but I didn't tell anybody where it was. It's going to be at the Lynn Museum. And it starts at 10, there'll be lunch served, and there are workshops from 10 to 11:30, and then I think from 12:30 to 2, and we'd love to have you come down so you can learn more about it and engage in some conversation about a very serious matter.
That's across the street from the Capitol Diner, isn't it?
It is, right? Yeah.
Right, so that's a good marking point.
And by the way, Eastern Benefits is our insurance provider, and they're providing the food.
Really?
Yeah.
Caring for somebody with dementia, Paul, if we can get that graphic up there, I didn't realize dementia itself is not a disease.
Yeah, they call it's a syndrome.
And it's a combination of many different factors.
Right.
And in effect, it's a defective brain. I mean, I don't like to use the word defective, but a brain that is not working at an optimal level.
Right.
That has,
you know, they actually, I saw an expose on this at a conference I was at a few years ago, and they actually talk about how parts of the brain, where you can see it like in a topographical view, you can see the view changes, and it almost looks like the capacity is literally diminished. In other words, the brain shrinks, or shrivels, or a little bit, something like that. And you're right, there are a number of different dementias. You know, they come in different shapes and forms. Unfortunately, the issues that come with it are all too similar. And then there's Alzheimer's, which is
a part of it,
right?
Yeah, part of the whole thing. Paul, let me ask you, I mean, it's really nice that you're putting on this program. Will there be other programs as follow-ups?
Yes, we've actually been doing this right along. We actually, you know, especially here in Lynn, people think of GLIS as a Lynn-based organization and providing services for Lynn, which we certainly do. But we also provide services to surrounding communities, Nahant, Swampscott, Lynnfield, and Saugus. And we had the dementia-friendly expose and training session in Saugus about 3 or 4 months ago, and we hope to be doing it in Lynnfield, Swampscott, and Nahant at some point too. And then there'll be follow-ups. This conversation starts on Thursday, but it really keeps going.
Continues.
Yes.
And you'll keep us posted on that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. You know what? Look, this is something no one can argue against, because the key word here is empathy.
Yep.
I mean, as you mentioned, you know somebody, you see somebody that is having difficulty, and it can break your heart
Right.
in some
No,
instances.
right.
You know,
Just to give you an example, if somebody with dementia, let's just say they repeat the same statement over and over again. I want to go to McDonald's. I want to go to McDonald's. I want to go to McDonald's. And you're not going to McDonald's, you're going to Burger King, right? I'm just making it very simple. In many cases, all you really need to do is agree with them and go to Burger King anyway. You know what I'm saying?
Of course, and they're getting a hamburger, so.
Right, and the idea is that you don't want to upset them if you don't have to, and if there are ways that you can kind of get past the challenge, and that's really like a lousy example, but maybe, for example...
But Paul, I think it's a great example, actually, because as we have patience with children, because you're talking about almost as if you're reverting to childhood, in some respects, okay? And if you have... We look at little kids as being cute and endearing, and perhaps if we took that same attitude to when you're at the other thing, it works out well.
Right.
You know? I got to get to Frankly Joe, Paul.
Okay,
folks.
Let's do it.
2% here, 2% there. Sooner or later, the well runs dry. Way back when, more than 40 years ago, Paul, would you believe this? The Environmental Protection Agency alleged, this key word, alleged that the commission, which by the way didn't exist during this allegation period, that Lynn or the commission was in violation of the Clean Water Act by allowing waste to flow into the Atlantic Ocean untreated.
Right. What was interesting is this was back when Pat McManus was the mayor.
No. Pre-Pat.
No, I'm just talking about when the DEP mandated that the city of Lynn have zero discharge. Zero. In other words, 100% of the sewer treatment had to be treated and none of it could be discharged into the ocean, which is an impossibility, but the city agreed to do it. And that's when they started that whole project with the water separation, and they did all of East Lynn, and then they stopped before they got to Westland.
This is post.
Okay.
This is post mandate. That's a different issue.
Okay.
Because yours truly was the founding father of the Lynn Water Sewer Commission, which cost me an election.
Do people understand that Joe Spina set up the Water and Sewer Commission?
Yeah. And it got me defeated, folks, because I got blamed for increasing your rates. Can you swallow this? You know? So let me, and I actually know a little bit about this subject. Never been invited back, by the way, and there's no plaque of my name anywhere to be found on the buildings, but that's neither here nor there. Look, it was created in 1982. I spent countless nights with meetings with everybody. You had to create a utility. Now, part of the reason, by the way, is not all altruistic. One of the great reasons for the creation of the Lynn Water Sewer Commission was an avoidance of Proposition 2.5, in which they created this utility, a revenue source, namely water and sewer, to offset DPW, pensions, health care, and the rest of it. So it was a little play.
Right.
Now, in case you don't understand this, the Lynn Water Sewer Commission is Greater Lynn. It's Nahant and Saugus. And the wastewater treatment aspect of it, not water. Water is strictly Lynn. But as far as the wastewater treatment plant was concerned, it was Tri-City. So they all contribute. At the time, they wanted to build a primary treatment plant. And they had a thing called coefficient of friction, which is, like having arterial sclerosis, the opening narrows. So they wanted to bring it out about 3 miles to bring it out there. At the time, I tried to argue that why build a primary when you can build a tertiary right off the get-go, which would do what you're talking about, that Pat McManus was talking about, cleaning it as much as possible.
Right.
All right. So what happens is this, and this is what's going to happen to you folks. The Lynn Water Sewer Commission, created in 1982, ostensibly to comply with the mandate by building a water filtration plant, sewer filtration plant. Now, says the Commission's executive director, whom I do not know, Daniel O'Neill, we, meaning Lynn Water Sewer Commission, have to pay for a mandated $106 million project and ratepayers are the only source of money. Now, translated, that means that you, me, folks, as of July 1st, including Paul and Dave and Pedro and all of us in the city of Lynn, are going to pony up another 2%, and it goes on and on and on. And when it stops, or does it ever?
No, and I would say long before we pay off the $106 million,
Yeah.
they'll be looking for another $100 million for something or another.
Well, Paul, there's a graphic that we're going to put up here. It says 105 million, and it's about the CSO, also known as continued sewer overflows. Okay, it's a little graphic. Now, it doesn't seem like much, but $105 million is being spent not necessarily to solve a problem.
Right.
And we could take that mandate. It can be challenged, and we have a whole new administration there that has different regulations. You follow what I mean, Paul?
Yep, I do.
So we may be able to get a stay of execution, so to speak. Now, it's been 40 years.
Well, what's interesting is that the CSO project, and this gets back to, I was talking about Pat McManus. So back in the 90s, when Pat McManus was the mayor, he agreed, in essence, to this zero discharge. And they started it. I don't know if you remember, but they were all the pipe that they was sitting on the side of the road all the way up Eastern Ave.
Oh,
and Chestnut Street, and they did all of Eastland. They separated the water from the sewer type of thing, the storm drain from the sewer, right? And that was the whole CSO project. And then, it was killing them. And then for some reason, and I don't really ever fully understand this, or I haven't fully understood this, is they stopped it before they started doing West Lynn. And
Well, I'm not so sure because there's 176 miles of piping in the city.
Right, but so for whatever reason, they stopped it and they didn't do it, and that's what this $106 million is purported to be for, is that part that hasn't been done yet,
But
right?
what court mandate are they talking about, Paul?
What
court order?
So this goes back to the DEP demand for zero discharge. And at one point, I think what happened is the water and sewer said, we can't keep doing, you can't ask us to do this. It costs us so much money, and we're not going to be able to meet the zero discharge. So give us a reprieve. And then there was a reprieve from like 2004 to today, which is like.
So why all of a sudden is it paramount that we do that separation, which, by the way, does not solve the flooding problem that happens in West Lynn? Now, here are the locations. $105 million to take care of 4 specific locations. One is Summer Street.
Yep.
North Shore Community College actually has 2 sites there that they want to do it at, and Bed and Alley Streets. You cannot prevent the flooding from taking place.
It's because it's already below sea level.
Exactly. So it's spending $105 to do what?
Right. Well, the interesting thing is the premise that it will stop the flooding is not the purpose of doing the project. The purpose of doing the project is to separate the storm water from sewer water.
Paul, those instances take place very rarely. I live on Lockwood Road. I spent 40 grand to do my cellar over, gorgeous. And then that famous 100-year storm took place.
The Mayday
and
storm,
my furniture was floating in a foot of water, or 3 feet of water, right?
Yep.
So I had to grin and bear it. Then you know what? I cleaned it all up, and they said, well, it's never happened again. So I made the foolish investment of doing my cellar over again, only to be kissed again.
Right.
So now I have some pumps.
Climate change.
Yeah, whatever. All I know is, well, if you're building like crazy in areas and you're not putting sufficient infrastructure to maintain the building, what do you expect?
Right.
Okay? So maybe someone should take a look at when these developers come in, as they want to do, they have to take a look at, do some planning as to how it impacts the water and the sewer lines, and whether they're going to put in enough pipes so that it doesn't affect the neighborhood. Anybody ever think of that?
Right.
Yeah, they don't.
No, they promise whatever it takes to get the project
sure.
approved, right?
Yeah. By the way, Paul, folks, Insanity Reigns, that's a new section that I'm doing.
Oh, okay.
And you are aware of this?
I want to see this, yeah.
Wow. Just when you thought you heard it all, along comes Northern Arizona University with a classic case of insanity. Posted outside of each campus bathroom is a sign that asks the question, I ask you, Paul, do you have P privilege?
And
Do you have P privilege?
And I don't know what P privilege is unless it means, you can keep using the bathroom as long as you put the seat down when you're done.
That's cute.
Yeah.
That's the question, though. Do you have P privilege? Listen to this.
So what is P privilege?
Well, I'm going to get to that. The answer, according to the signposters, now listen to this carefully, folks, is if you never think about gender identity, ability, or access when peeing, well then, you have P privilege.
So if you think about, so if you...
In other words, you're a normal human being.
You're not eligible. So you have to change your thinking in order to have the privilege to pee.
According to Northern Arizona University.
Oh, yeah.
As if that didn't qualify for the reign of insanity, another sign expands upon the definition of P privilege. You like that one, Paul? Noting that the ability to use a restroom without fear or concern for your own safety constitutes such a privilege. Have you ever been fearful about going to take a pee? I don't know where they come up with this. Explaining that other factors like, this is a great term, gender binary, you like that one? That means girl, boy. Or the ability to undoubtedly know which bathroom to pick contributes to P privilege. The once ivory towers, Paul, have now degenerated and evolved into cuckoo's nests.
Right. I guess I just, what was so bad with the way it was before all the stuff started happening, where they started, talking about, was it really that bad that people's lives were, fouled up because they didn't know which bathroom to use?
No. And when did we come up with terms like binary gender?
Right.
As far as I'm concerned, gender is binary, isn't it? Is there a third gender you can think of? And anywhere in any species, is there a third gender? Really a third gender?
No.
Of course. But nobody wants to admit to that because you may feel like I may feel feminine, Paul. Whatever. I don't know. But, I mean...
Can somebody cut me some slack here?
Yeah, I mean, the reign of insanity is pervasive.
Oh, it is.
And I mean, I don't want to knock it. I understand some people might have a gender crisis, but remember, what was that show last week? What was the focus of our show last week, Paul?
Sanctuary cities, wasn't it?
The organized minority.
Oh, right, yeah.
And this is another case of a small group of folks who organize whatever silly idea they may have and try to tell the rest of us sane people, although in my case that's questionable, they're trying to tell us the way to live our lives, and what's black is now pink.
Right. That's the whole 1984 George Orwell, where black is white, night is day. The word means exactly the opposite of what you were accustomed to it meaning.
You're very, you're literary, Paul.
Yeah.
I'm impressed. I really, Mark it down, folks. This is another news segment. Mark it down. How's this one, Paul? Here, Chicago. Look what it says. Chicago what?
200 homicides, and we're only in May.
That's already 200. Bingo.
Yeah.
Now, we all get upset at a special forces guy, and we should, who got shot in Afghanistan doing business for the United States of America.
Right, but it's safer over there than it is in Chicago.
I bet you there's far less people being killed in combat in Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan than in Chicago.
Yep.
And do you see anybody screaming about it? And we've been saying this on and on and on.
Right.
I asked you last week if you thought there was an upkick in violence in the city of Lynn.
I'm going to tell you, I remember back when I was on the city council and Chip Clancy was the mayor, and it seemed like it would be cyclical. Maybe not every year, but maybe every 18 months, there'd be a spate of some, violence and so forth. And then there'd be an outcry for what are we going to do about the violence? We need more cops. You have that conversation, right? And then, there would be talk about it, and everybody would be saying all the right things, and then, the next day would come and would be, nothing would really change because, the realities of budgets are that you can't just throw more money at the problem necessarily. So, and this is what I'm seeing with the Chicago thing, because every once in a while, like we'll raise it here, we'll see it on Fox News, or we'll, maybe even once in a while the fake news will actually mention it, but not very often. And they mention it, and everybody gets all ginned up about it, and we talk about things that need to be done. And then you all of a sudden a year goes by, and you look back, and the stats haven't gotten any better. They've maybe even gotten worse.
Paul, has it occurred to anybody, if this type of carnage was taking place in Brookline, do you think maybe it would be in the news a little bit? Do you think maybe some action would be taking place?
Of course.
All right. So why are they neglecting this issue? Because it affects the African American community and these leaders who purport to be diverse.
It's not just that it affects the African American community. It's because they are both the victim and the perpetrator in these cases, right? And so it doesn't fit that narrative.
The point being is that the pathology of what is taking place is peculiar to certain communities for a variety of reasons. So we don't have to get into why it's happening. So if something is happening, why not stop it, then work on the causes? In other words, if you're shot and bleeding to death, you stick a tourniquet on first, right. And after you've stabilized, right. Then you start figuring out where the bullets are.
So the solution in Chicago then would be to take away everybody's Second Amendment rights then, right?
No, that's the opposite. They have the most severe gun restriction rules and laws in the country.
Right.
And every place that has the most severe has the highest level of crime. It's an oxymoron. It's almost, the opposite.
Right. So.
You know why? It's drugs, it's poverty, it's hopelessness.
So what's the alternative to, because and I was being facetious because I don't agree with abandoning the Second Amendment to eliminate gun violence because, what's that old expression? If guns are outlawed, only outlaws will have guns.
Yeah, they have things called machetes. They have spears,
right,
rocks, hands.
So my point is, so you're saying put the tourniquet on it. So what's the tourniquet here?
It's just to stop the bleeding.
Right. So, but what do we do to stop the bleeding in Chicago? I want to know.
How about stop and frisk? How about that for openness? Huh? How about stiff sentencing for selling drugs? You have to start. Look, Paul, when we do adages, folks, and proverbs, they have meaning. One of the famous Sicilian proverbs is, better to be feared than loved. I don't like that, but that's a reality. So if you want to take care of a problem, love and kisses aren't going to do it.
Right. That was the Obama 8 years.
Wait a minute. He came from South Chicago. He was a community organizer, and they made him president. He couldn't even take care of South Chicago, and they made him president. Now you figure that one out. So I don't know. Here's another one, folks. This applies to me too. Mark it down. Too much exercise, I love this one, causes a leaky gut and increases health risk. So says research.
Too much exercise?
Too much exercise.
Oh,
this new study says causes a leaky gut, whatever that means, and increases health risk. You like that one?
No, because I've been going to the gym every day.
Apparently what happens is it changes the microorganisms in your intestinal tract, which has difficulty breaking down certain enzymes and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not a scientist, I don't want to get deep into it, but everybody comes up with a new idea. So mark it down to find out whether that's the case. Obviously, anything in excess is not a good idea.
Right. And is it an excess if I'm doing something active for 60 minutes a day? Is that excessive, do you think?
You're asking me?
Yeah.
The couch, getting up the couch is my exercise.
Going to get a dish of ice cream?
I mean, I can't see my toes anymore, for God's sakes. I mean, you're asking the wrong person about it.
So I saw a bumper sticker the other day that I couldn't, I was laughing out loud. I was in the car by myself. I couldn't stop laughing. It said, "I love gluten." right? And, you know, it's the first time I've seen anything like that. You know, because I'm gluten free and all that kind of stuff, and it just reminds me of how, you know, different perspectives on things really come into play. And whoever came up with that "I love gluten" must be selling wheat. You know.
Hey, we'll get into that on the fake news because that's an interesting correlation. Well, let me put it this way. I've said this before to folks. When's the last time an Eskimo had 2 overlight with bacon, orange juice, and, you know, a Caesar salad? Never. And they're perfectly healthy, right? So who knows what? Okay. But I know this. You want to talk about California? I hope the hell they do secede from the Union. Listen to this latest one. This is why this world has gone insane. California may, hasn't yet, but may, and I guarantee you probably will, allow communists to work openly in state government. Well, we get Bernie Sanders. He's as close to communism as you can get it.
Right. Well, you know, it's interesting, that whole conversation. I read that story this morning. So there's a law that emanated out of the 40s and 50s that basically, back during the McCarthy era or whatever, and the idea was that communism was so despicable and bad for our country that states would not allow it in their. So in other words, if you were a declared member of a communist party, you would not be able to work in state government.
That's subversive. It ought to overthrow our government. Yeah,
I get it. So I mean, that was why they did it, right?
Yeah.
But that was at a time when, if you were, you know, what was the old expression? I'd rather be dead than red. You know, those kinds of things. So basically, communism was, you know, akin to, you know, being a criminal, right?
Paul, they want to overthrow our government. This is what communism did.
No,
Stalin wiped out 25 million Ukrainians.
But here's the thing that we fast forward to today, right?
Yeah.
So it's 50, 60, 70 years later. And, you know, nobody's saying that nobody's running around saying, I'm a communist, I'm a communist, I'm a communist. But their actions and the strategies and all that, you know, like rules for radicals and all that, it's all communist kind of manifesto stuff, right? Is it not?
Marxist, yeah.
So they're all moving in a communist direction. And the Hugo Chavez is our hero, and Fidel Castro is our hero. All these conversations now are, you know, from the left are suggesting that communism is this great thing and we should be embracing it.
Oh, yeah. Go to Venezuela and see how it works.
Right.
You know? By the way, folks, here's the ironies of life. Paul, you're onto something. You stumbled onto the truth.
I always stumble.
Yeah. When communism was running well in what was called the Soviet Union, we had a lot of folks in this country that were very supportive of Stalin and communism. Don't forget, Stalin was our ally in World War II against Nazi Germany.
Right. And he killed how many more people?
That Stalin made Hitler look like a choir boy because he was brutal. Now, isn't it ironic that all of a sudden communism is gone and now we don't like Russians? Now it's the Russians who are no longer communists, right?
Right.
They abandoned communism. We don't like them. Oh, the Russians.
Did they really abandon communism, though?
Of course they did.
Well, they maybe have abandoned communism, but they're still statists, though, right? They have like a modified capitalism. They have crony capitalism.
Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
What was in this country? Uncrony capitalism?
I mean,
let's not be holier than thou, Paul.
Right. Okay.
In Japan, is Japan a democracy?
I'm not really sure.
They're capitalists, that's for sure.
Yep.
Is China communist? Politically, not economically.
Right.
They're capitalists.
They're like a hybrid, right?
No, they're not a hybrid. They came to a great realization. They realized they could not control 1.3 billion starving people using communist economic and 5-year plans.
Right.
And Zhou Enlai convinced Mao, that's how sharp Kissinger and Nixon were, 2 brilliant men, by the way, who said, hey, you don't have to be democratic in order to be capitalist. See, that was the false narrative.
Right. That they were tied to, that joined at the hip or whatever. And
just take a look at Taiwan, take a look at South Korea, take a look at Japan, take a look at Singapore. Not a one of them is a democracy in the sense that we're talking about, and every single one of them is thriving. So government doesn't have to be, as long as the economic system is.
Right.
France is in the ditch right now, and they went one step further. They had the socialist president for the last 5 years, right?
Right.
The guy they just elected is not going to be any better. They have a 23, 24, 25% unemployment rate, and they got all kinds of problems. So,
And they said, let's just keep doing this.
yeah, let's do
Basically.
more of the same.
Well, actually, I got to give him a little bit of credit because at least this guy that won, they call him a centrist, but he's an outsider, and that to me matters, right? Hopefully there'll be a little
He's an
bit.
investment banker, Paul. It can't be too outside. He was the minister of finance, so, you know, by definition, we're down to adages, axioms, and proverbs.
This is a new section too,
Yes,
right?
it is. What do you think of this one, Paul? This is an Islamic proverb. We honor all. We are diverse on this show, unlike other shows.
Italian and Irish.
You're Greek also. A known mistake is better than an unknown truth. Ponder that, Paul.
Yeah, that's and it's Islamic too. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
A known mistake is better than an unknown truth.
You like that one?
Yeah, I definitely want to ponder that.
How about the Indian proverb, Paul? You have a little Indian in you, don't you?
I don't know.
Maybe? Who knows? You don't want to take the DNA test. You told us last week you're afraid of it. You might find out that you're...
No, it's nothing to do with what I find out about myself. It's what somebody else might find out about me.
I got you. All right. Number 2.
Only when the last tree has died and the last river poisoned and the last fish caught will we realize we cannot eat money. I
Don't
like
you love that?
Yeah.
Huh?
like
I have to
that.
repeat that.
Go ahead.
Folks, only when the last tree has died and the last river poisoned and the last fish caught will you realize you can't eat money.
Yep.
That should be taught in school every single day of the week. Don't you think? Finish it off, Paul. Your Chinese accent here.
Okay, so this is a Chinese
Yeah.
proverb. Confucius say, tell
I
me
don't
I
know.
forget, show me I remember, involve me I understand.
Huh?
Right?
Right to the point.
Yeah, tell me I forget,
Yeah?
show me I remember, involve me I understand. And the key is, you know, that's like the investing in people, having people invested in the process and understanding why they do things.
You're a tech graduate.
Yes, I am.
This
Class of
applies to
77.
tech. In other words, if you involve me, if you let me use my hands to build something, guess what? I'll understand.
Right.
That's why tech is a great school.
Yeah, it
And
is.
schools like tech, as opposed to these other ones. Tell me, oh, I'm going to forget, which is
Right.
true.
Right, where it's memorization type stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Don't forget it.
Right.
Things to think about, Paul. Are you ready for this one?
I'm ready.
All right. Do you realize, folks, I want you to try it, because it's totally and completely impossible for you to lick your elbow. I've been trying all day. I couldn't do it. Now, Paul, here's a question for you.
I'm not going there.
Pedro and Dave, let's see if you guys can think of it. What is the only food, you can't do it, can you? Try licking your elbow. What is the only food that doesn't spoil? Now, to make it easy for you, I put an asterisk, and I'm going to give you 4 choices. Pasta, honey, rice, wine. Boom, 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 boom. I'm waiting for an answer. What did you say, Dave?
I'd say wine.
He said wine?
He said honey, I said wine.
He's smarter than you are, Paul.
Okay.
He's got more copper and zinc in his hair than you do. Honey's the answer. Now, I like this one here because, as an old, right behind you, Paul, they're playing cards, aren't they?
That's what it looks
Yeah.
like, yeah. Their
So
heads
those
down.
folks playing cards, in a deck of cards, an American deck of cards, or English, whatever ones we use, Hoyle, the king, or each king, represents a great king from history. So I'm having you match them. Spades, hearts, clubs, diamonds. So Alexander the Great, would he be a spade, heart, club, or diamond? What do you think?
Alexander the Great.
If you want to pass, you can go to Charlemagne, or you can go to Julius Caesar or King David. Where do
I'd
you
say
think?
Alexander the Great was hearts.
He doesn't think that.
No.
You may think it, but he doesn't think that.
Okay.
But I'll tell you who the King of Spades was. You know, that's the top king. Who do you think would be the top king?
The top king.
The King of Kings.
King David.
Exactly. Exactly. So King David is the king of spades. Now, I hope I'm right on this because here's where I get confused. You may be right about something. I'm sure that Julius Caesar is diamonds. I think, folks, I should look this up myself. I may fail
So
my
here
own.
you go. You're posing this question to all of our viewers back at home, and you don't even know the answers. My word.
Ignorance prevails. You know what I'm saying?
And you're such a great
Well,
lesson,
someone let me
you're such a great
know.
lesson planner, though. I mean, I don't understand how you
Generally
managed to
speaking,
allow this
but
to happen.
I'm suffering from dementia, Paul. You know, I'm getting a little senior moments.
Thursday, 10 o'clock.
Charlemagne, I believe, is the king of hearts. And that leaves Alexander the Great as the king of clubs. If I'm wrong, please let me know.
I'd like to understand the significance, what it is about the king of clubs that makes it tied to these different kings.
Now, you asked me to do some more research, huh?
Yes. Next
to
week.
be answered next week, folks.
All right.
Now, to get to something dear to my heart, which is the fake news alert. This is being reinstituted.
Yeah.
Here's the headline, Paul.
The item today, right?
Yeah, here's the headline. Local reps vow to fight cuts to vets. By whom? Who's cutting anything from the vets?
Well, they're claiming that that's what Donald Trump is doing with the changes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How about the fact that they overspent and they're saying trim it back? You know, you were allocated $10, you spent 11, get back to 10. Is that a cut?
Hey, you know?
But that's the headline. But the story doesn't even follow that script. The story is entirely different. For example, it opens up. As the Trump administration cuts health and transportation programs to local veterans, the region's elected officials say they are ready to combat the White House. Is that true?
Yeah, and I wonder how they plan on combating them.
But is it true? The point is, this was printed as a fact. Is it factual?
I don't think it is, no.
Of course it isn't.
Right.
And who's doing the yicky yakking? You can bet your life it's he who wants to be president. Did you notice that Seth Moulton's name's been banded around among the 43 other names for a possible candidate for president of the United States in 2020? That would really be the reign of insanity.
Right, and if it was based on the fact that local reps vow to fight cuts to vets, I mean, the fact of the matter is, think about this, right? Mm-hmm. Throughout the campaign, I mean, there were a lot of things that Donald Trump took up. You know,
the one thing he wasn't going to do was screw around with the vets.
He was with the vets, and this is designed to make it look like
he's opposed.
He's throwing them out with the bathwater.
Yeah, but here's the best one. What is the word that politicians use? There's two words that they use. As soon as they say those two words, I'm out the door. One is plan, because plans never work.
Right.
And second is fight. And you notice who the big fighters are? The females. All of a sudden, these females are now bobcats, right? Elizabeth Warren, we're going to fight for. I'm going to fight for. I'm going to fight. What kind
I
of
have a plan?
Yeah, I have a plan, and I'm going to fight for. Those two things are the most overused terms ever. No, I'm sorry, folks. The fact of the matter is.
Right.
Do you like that one?
How about
let
me be clear?
Let me be clear. Yeah. And if they say I'm honest, then you can really run for the hills. So, any case, now this is all comes from a memo, a recent memo from the Department of Veteran Affairs to adult daycare providers. And you're in the adult daycare provider, by the way, Paul.
No, I'm not.
You're not? Chris is not? Doesn't deal with that?
We don't do adult daycare, no.
Okay. So, here's what it says. It says, the budget for these services has been exceeded, so you have to trim it. Did you ever hear of Pondview Lodge? I never heard of it.
It's the old Briarcliff Lodge.
What is it?
It's Briarcliff Lodge.
This is where all the lawmakers sit down and make the decision.
No, Briarcliff Lodge is an adult day health program.
It's called Pondview Lodge?
Pondview.
That's what it is now?
And Gliss used to run it when it was called Briarcliff.
Well, apparently the lawmakers met there
Yes.
and pondered great things with great thoughts.
Right. They had a legislative breakfast there yesterday or something.
Which is the genesis of this story.
Right.
Elders are provided with transportation, a hot meal, therapeutic activities, nursing care, and a chance to socialize with friends.
Right.
All of which I consider a good thing.
Right.
Particularly since I'm an elder. Cost effective, it is much more cost effective. Now, they quote a fellow named Frank Romano, who happens to be president of the Essex Group Management Corporation, which means he has a vested interest in the daycare program since his family does that, as opposed to nursing homes.
Right.
Okay, so he wants to talk down nursing homes and talk up his business.
Of course.
Which is, so they quote him. That's
Right.
a disingenuous quote. They don't mention. Now, here's the point. He says the average annual cost of adult daycare is $25,000, which to me is a lot of money, and the annual nursing home cost is $86,000. Now, this is according to National Adult Day, and I don't know who they are. Maybe you do. But I'm always suspect of people who throw out figures and you don't know who they are. Do you ever heard of National Adult Day?
Generally, I've heard of them. Yeah, it's a national. So there's a mass association of adult day health programs called MASDA, and I'm sure the federal level has the same thing. And basically, they're an advocacy group for their cause. And you know, I'm going to tell you something. That adult day health programs are a vital part of the work that we do to keep people, you know, comfortable in the least restrictive settings in their home. You know, gets them out of the house on a daily basis, keeps them social. However, there is a proliferation of adult day health programs across the state because it's a moneymaker if you have this, if you can get your census up and have enough people in these programs. So there's concern at mass health level that there is, you know, maybe a little bit of, you know, an over-reliance on these programs. So and this is not a veterans question, it's a broader
That's exactly
question.
my point.
Right.
So this is, everything in this article had nothing to do with veterans. Nothing. And yet it's presented that way as a headline. That is the epitome of fake news. At the very end, here's a quote from Losey, because they quoted everybody. It's an interesting quote. He said, we need to work with our legislators to see these good programs continue, that these good programs, which is right. But who's he talking about? State? Federal? What are they referring to?
Well, you know,
very generic, Paul.
Right, well, a couple of years ago, the state, in an attempt to try to curtail the cost of the adult day health programs, wanted to cut the rate that you would actually get for it. And, you know, it just like we were talking. So they decided to cut the rate. That's kind of like this heading. Fed cuts to vets. It's really fight cuts to adult day health, right?
Yeah.
That's a few years ago. And everybody who was running these facilities and their lobbyists and so forth, you know, went screaming to their legislators and got them to, you know, to stop it from happening.
What about that's just politics as usual, Paul?
It is. That's exactly
what about it's not cost effective? What about we have more serious problems to think about in this world? I mean, no one talks about the North Koreans who are going bananas with their nuclear program, but they're worried about having P privilege at the college and the university.
Well, now that's important.
Oh, P privilege, trumps everything. By the way, the Russians are in on that. To our comments. I like this comment. Good show this week, or last week. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Paul, comment number 2. Get off your iPhone and get to work here.
I was just looking at the time.
I'm
Remember
here,
when New York City had a very liberal mayor? Well, they still do.
Yeah.
Crime was all out of control.
Yeah.
When he gave way to a law and order candidate, things changed quickly. Chelsea has the highest major crime rate in Massachusetts. It is, of course, a sanctuary city.
Of course,
Police chief
of course.
says he will not cooperate with ICE.
All right. That gives you a reason, folks, in the city of Lynn to fight tooth and nail for those who want to make Lynn a sanctuary city. Here it is right here. It says it right here. Sanctuary city, what is it? Chelsea?
Yep.
Highest crime rate. And what's the police chief say? I'm not cooperating with ICE. He should be fired. He has an obligation, doesn't he?
Yeah, follow the law.
Or resign.
Okay.
I can't picture an instance when ICE would be coming into the school alone to arrest a child. Can you, Paul?
You know, that's the funny thing about this, is that it was all pomp and circumstance. You know, we're there for the young kids. They're not showing up at the schools. They're looking for the bad actors. And maybe in the quest to find these bad actors, some people will get caught up in the net. But by and large, they're not going to be going to the schools for that. You're right.
Yeah, but also, I didn't say this. This is one of our intelligent, by the way, we have a very intelligent audience. So I want to thank you folks because you are by far the most astute audience in television land, Paul.
Yes, they are.
So, it just makes some people feel good to pass laws. And I agree with that. Why do we have, I would love someone to come up and say, I vow not to pass any laws.
No, and Donald Trump said this during the election cycle, and I actually said it, and I'm going to take credit for this, long before he mentioned it. Every time, and I said this when I was on the city council, every time we pass a new ordinance, we should eliminate two, so that we can continue to shrink them. Because you can't just say stop making laws, but there's a bunch of laws that really don't need to be there. There's no reason why we have to have a law against not cleaning up horse manure in the streets.
Yeah.
That was back.
There's no horses running around anymore.
Right.
I like you, Paul.
Yeah.
By the way, Justinian codified all Roman law because it became impossible. He simplified it.
Right.
That was Justinian back in 565, by the way. This one here is up to you, Paul, because I'm not touching it.
So I get to read this one because whoever reads it gets whacked.
Yeah, you get the last one.
Right.
Yeah.
So the age of some of these students might be an issue. Some illegals were said to be 20 or so. If a school official were to obstruct a federal policeman from making an arrest, he would be in big trouble. Someone should tell the new liberal lawyer on the board that one need not have an arrest for an arrest. Where did he get his law degree from? A Cracker Jack box? By the way, what does this lawyer on the school committee have so many meetings at the portal with it? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize. I only figured it out.
Just asking. I mean, I have no idea.
I don't either.
But I know who he's referring to.
I do now.
I'm not going to be disingenuous.
And that's not, it's not, we shouldn't have read that. I'm sorry I read it.
Why?
Well, let's just leave it alone.
Why?
Because I'm not sure I agree with it.
That's not the question. It isn't whether you agree with it or not, Paul.
Right.
I mean, that's a point of view.
Right.
And obviously, whether
No, but if I'm reading it,
Yeah.
I don't want it to sound as if it's
You're condoning it?
my opinion, or I'm condoning it.
This is comment time, but these are not our comments. Right. By the way, I didn't see anybody being all bent out of shape when Stephen Colbert said what he said about, that was vulgar and crude. And
I was.
What?
I was pretty upset.
Well, my point being is, if you...
He doesn't, I mean, he's not even funny.
Hey, it wasn't funny.
He's supposed to
but
be a
he's not
comedian.
funny to start with. Get out of public life if you can't take the beating, okay? You took a few.
I took my shots. I still
Can
do.
you swallow this? I took a few.
Yeah.
That's why Lynn Water Sewer Commission, bye-bye Joe. That's the end of your career for doing the right thing, by the way,
Right.
which you did also. So I'm not going to make any apologies. Hey, if this is what people think, put it out there. And if you can't deal with it, then don't run for office.
Right.
Now, I'm not questioning, and I'm not denigrating, or I'm not, I think he's a decent guy. I don't know. I don't know anything about him.
Right.
I just know he's a lawyer. And I just know that we won't be back next week. Folks, please say your prayers, and don't forget the rosary beads, and pray for Joe and Paul. We'll see you on the 24th of May, which is in 2 weeks.
Next new show will be in 2 weeks.
Bye-bye.